So, good evening, everybody. This is John Spillman, your host for the Davidson GOP Red Wave podcast. So, the Red Wave podcast serves as a chance for the audience and you guys to learn more about local politics, politicians, and the issues important to Davidson County. So, we'll focus on hyper-local politics and hopefully get you guys involved and have some special guests along the way. So, our first guest is none other than our chairman of the Davidson GOP, Christopher Jessup. So, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you having me.
Excellent. So really our goal with this is to talk with you a little bit about your role in politics, history of politics, and see where it goes. So how did you get started in politics?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I began in politics when I was about 15 years old. It was during the Bush-Cheney 2000 election. I just started to get interested in seeing what was going on. My grandmother was becoming heavily involved in politics herself and had a lot of magazines coming to the house discussing the Clinton administration and the importance of the 2000 presidential election. And that's how I really got my start. I started handing out cards at doors, putting signs up, all kinds of things. And from there, I became precinct vice chairman, precinct chairman, served on executive committees, and you and I worked together to create the Davidson County Republican Men's Club, and that was a great organization to help create. It brought a lot of men from across this county together to around common ideas and goals, and we were able to do a lot of great things there.
Yeah, and I'll say too that I wasn't really involved in politics until I met you, both working at Lexington Senior High School, and we ran one time for our slate for the executive or party officials, and then we ran again, and you had the idea of doing the men's club, and that's where kind of I got started in politics, local politics at least, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has. I agree. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. So now that you are chairman, can you talk a little bit about running for chairman this past time?
Well, being chairman, you can make as much or as little out of it as one wants to. And one thing that I believe Davidson County is the keystone of victory for North Carolina Republicans who run statewide races. We have the votes here that can swing elections from Democrat to Republican, whether it be governor, lieutenant governor, U.S. Senate, in this case this year in 2022. And I believe that that's where Davidson County needs to focus. We need to realize that we're part of a 100-piece puzzle, not just an island by ourselves, and we can really make some big improvements with the voter turnout we have here, make big improvements to statewide races across North Carolina.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about is we decided to run this past time is looking at how Davidson County could be a keystone and motivating people at the grassroots level.
That's right. And
that's part of the purpose of this podcast and really everything we've been doing since March 2021.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So based on the fact that you're chairman now, so what vision do you have for Davidson County and the Republican Party in Davidson County going into early voting, which is going on right now, the primaries, and then also into the midterms?
Well, I think it's important, especially as we're in the midst of the primaries right now, to remember that at the end of the day, we're all Republicans. Remember that we're playing for the same team. And we need to remember that what Ronald Reagan said, the 80-20 rule, that we find someone we agree with 80% of the time, we can deal with the 20%. Republicans are notorious for capitalizing the 20% they disagree with, and so much discord takes place in the party that someone winds up being elected with which we disagree with 100%. And so, once the primaries are over with, we need to make sure whether we voted for that candidate or not in the primary, we need to make sure we're getting behind them because they need our support to go against the Democratic Party, which is seeking to destroy everything that's made this nation great. I think also that the main thing I would focus on this year, and what we have focused on, is unity in the party and growing our party into a greater, I don't know what the word would be, a greater presence in the county. There's so many people that I think, and I've met them, they didn't even know the Republican Party existed, and that's not their fault. There's our fault. We haven't done a good job with that, and I think the stuff you've done with the brand managing and the things on Facebook and YouTube and other things we've done to promote our party. We want to continue to go to things such as the Multicultural Festival and parades and places where the party hasn't been seen in the past and places that needs to be seen more. We share our values with so many people across Davidson County. It's just so many people share the values of the Republican Party, and we need to desperately reach those folks and let them know that we're not against them, we're for them, and we need to be working together so we can win this year in 2022 in November against the Democrats. The only way a red wave comes, John, is when Republicans are working together and making it happen. If people stay home, it doesn't happen.
Sure. And that's another thing we talked about, we kind of ran on this past cycle is unity is essential for victory.
Yes, it is.
And, one of the things that we always see is the Democrats they unify around whatever issue it is or whatever platform they have. And it seems like they have this unbreakable unity. And we seem to be fighting amongst ourselves in a lot of cases. And it does have a detrimental effect sometimes.
It does. Democrats are great about circling the wagons when something happens. And Republicans haven't been as good with that. And we need to not kick our people when they're down. We need to be working together all the time to ensure that we are victorious everywhere we're running a candidate.
Yeah, completely agree. So is there a central issue, though, that you see that motivates you to stay active in politics? Is there one issue that you find compelling or maybe essential to why you even chose to become active in politics originally?
I don't think it was a central issue, like one thing that motivates me. I think becoming a father helps you put things in a different perspective. Sometimes you realize that you're creating and building a legacy. And when we look back at the generations before us, people that were the sacrifices they made to make our country great, so we could live in freedom that we have today, and we realize it's up to us now to do the same thing for our children. I think that has become more recently, in recent years, since I've become a father, that has been something that has motivated me to continue this fight, because if, Republican Party right now is the best vehicle to preserve American liberty. And we need to continue to fight for that and not shrink back, not just go home and say, well, the battle's won, the battle's done, there's nothing we can do about it. There is something we can do about it. And we need to continue to fight, continue to show up at the polls and vote, continue to fight for election integrity, continue to be involved in every way we can in the political process. It's worth it. Our nation's worth it. Our county's worth it. Our state's worth it.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. Yeah, becoming a father, it opens your eyes to seeing the world in a different way, especially when you have a rival party that is one of their party platform positions is destroying that institution.
That's right. It does.
So it makes you motivated to fight for those things. Definitely.
I agree.
So what are some goals that the Davidson GOP has going into year number 2? So we got a year under our belt. That was great. Excellent learning experience. It was tough. It's been a lot of hard work for both you and I. But going into year 2, now that we've got a year under our belt, we got some experience under our belt. What do you kind of envision for year number 2 with Davidson GOP?
Well, with year number 2, I think it's important to continue to build on what we've already done. Never be satisfied, because there's always work to improve things. Mainly, we're focusing right now on the 2022 elections in the fall. We're looking to support our candidates, whoever they may be, and hopefully getting them through the general election. I want to focus on Davidson County being as deep red as it can be. Davidson is a red county anyway, but we need to make it as deep red as we can get it. Those are the central issues of why our party exists, and also to get as many people that are interested in working in the party, getting them involved in ways that are meaningful to them. And when it's meaningful to them, they're going to help the party grow, which is what we need to continue to be doing.
Sure, yeah, and that's one of the things that I always tell you that makes me kind of confirms for me that I know that what we're doing is making a difference, is seeing those new people try to get involved.
There's so many new people that are involved, that are excited, and they're wanting to actually work and to get something done. And we need those new folks. We need our party stalwarts to continue to be there to help train these people, to lead by example. But the new folks are essential to what we're doing. The young people that we're starting to see come in, it's just invaluable that we have that. And we need to continue to reach out to every aspect of society and find those Republicans, because we need them. And we need their talents. We need their gifts and abilities that God's given to them to further our party.
Sure, definitely. So now we're talking about, people getting involved with the party. So what issues do you believe are going to motivate people to become active this election cycle? What do you think is going to get people to the polls in Davidson County, locally, or maybe statewide, or maybe nationally?
I think there's several issues that seem to be on people's minds. I think people are still very much concerned about election integrity. And I mean, I think that's a very legitimate concern. I think that the Biden administration, their continued assault on the American family, inflation, gas prices, shortages of basically anything you're looking for, the war in Ukraine right now, and basically just the failure across the board of the Biden administration to do anything that has helped the American people. I think the border crisis, we continue to see thousands upon thousands of people entering this country illegally. I think that all of these issues combined are motivating people to not only to come out and vote, but also to rethink how they're voting. You know, is the Democratic Party representing my values? And I've seen a lot of people that have abandoned the Democratic Party recently. They're saying they do not represent my values anymore. They're not the party of my parents or my grandparents anymore. They're a completely different, far left party, and the Republican Party more reflects that. And I think that going into 2022, those are the things that people are going to be looking at. But again, thinking about them and talking about them amongst yourselves doesn't make anything change. We have to get out to the polls and vote. That's the only way it's going to change.
Sure. So, and I mean, one of the things that we've heard continuously as one of the biggest mistakes the Democrats have made over this past year or so is turning parents into a voter bloc. So, speaking of the issues, what can you say on, critical race theory and things like that, kind of invading education? And thankfully, we have Mark Robinson, at the helm on some of those things. So, do you see that also motivating people to come out?
I think so, and I think that when the COVID shutdowns took place, I think a lot of parents were able to see for the first time what was being taught in schools. And previously, they trusted that the school system was doing the right thing. And then they started coming home. They started looking at it and said, wait a minute, this is not what we were expecting. It's not what we anticipated to see when they were coming home. But I definitely think that's part of it as well. I think that education as a whole is something that motivates a large block of people, especially in Davidson County. Because, who doesn't want to see improved education? I don't think anybody wants to see it go the other way. But we need to make sure that we are focused on getting CRT out of our schools and making sure that stuff does not invade.
Sure, yeah, and is what we keep having people say, we don't teach CRT in school. That's not part of the curriculum. You and I both, from my personal experience, I've seen it. Maybe not officially, but I've seen it. Same case for you?
It has been. It's, and I think it's, it creeps in. You're not going to have a course on CRT. You're not going to have a course that's offered about anything like that, but it seeps in other ways. And you have to watch for it. It's not something that is just out there plain. It's hidden. It's the subtleness of it. This the deceitfulness of it that tends to just infuse so many different aspects of the curriculum, especially social studies, which is one I'm very familiar with, and it's something that has to be stopped.
Sure. So now we've talked about some local politics. Let's talk about some of the current national stories that I think definitely deserve our attention. So this past week we had leaking of a draft decision from Samuel Alito about overturning Roe versus Wade. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the leak itself, it's bad. It shouldn't have happened. That's not something that should ever be condoned. And again, just shouldn't have happened. Roe versus Wade, I believe life begins at conception. And I'm very interested to see what the Supreme Court has to say about this. As the full verdict is handed out in the next few weeks, I'm assuming we'll be hearing more about that. And I think that a lot of people in this country have worked hard and waited for a very long time to see this decision reversed. And it's been a terrible decision. Millions of children have been killed. Innocent babies have been
63
killed.
million.
Yes. I mean, so many people have lost their lives. And it's a scar on this country's morality. It's a scar on this country's history. And I think that it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few months and how I believe state legislatures will be responding to this. I think that that's going to put a lot of pressure on state legislatures to either begin doing or continuing what they have already started to protect innocent life in this country. And I'm looking forward to that, to seeing how it happens. But it also means, again, here in North Carolina, we have to make sure we have the right people in place to make pro-life policies. And again, going back to what we said about Davidson County being the keystone, Davidson County has the votes, if we turn it out, to swing statewide races, including the governor in this state, to Republican. And that's what it's going to take to do this, keeping our majorities in the House and the Senate, keeping a majority, hopefully, on the Supreme Court very soon, and taking back the governor's mansion. Davidson County is critical in this.
Yeah, and I tend to agree also. I also believe, life begins at conception. And while the leak, was egregious, and I agree with that, it's an answer to a lot of prayers for a lot of people because, I think the science is on our side in this case.
Absolutely.
When Roe versus Wade was passed, we didn't have the ultrasound. I mean, that's how long it's been. And just basing a decision off of precedent is not enough. I think an overturning of Roe versus Wade has been due for a while.
Absolutely.
With advances in prenatal science and neonatal science and personhood in the womb and all those things, science is on our side. So, Democrats love to, claim that they're the party of science. They can't define a woman at this point. They ignore the science with abortion and personhood in the womb. And, they leftist heads are exploding at this point.
They are. I mean, you have to look no further than what's happening at the homes of some of these justices, being picketed and targeted because of this. I mean, that's unheard of in this country, and it's ridiculous.
And I also heard that some, pro-life pregnancy centers have been firebombed. They're using
Catholic
Molotov cocktails
and conducting masses and having protesters enter and disrupt houses of worship, and that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I actually saw a video yesterday of them singing a hymn, "Thank God for Abortion," on the steps of Catholic Church. Like, you can't look at that and say, these are the good guys. These are the guys on the right side of the argument. I mean, at least in my opinion, I think it's very clear.
I agree.
So, now that, we do have that leak, it has led to, protests and things like that. But now we have Eric Swalwell and several other, Democratic leaders talking about packing the court again. So what are your thoughts on that as well?
Well, it would not be the first time Democrats have attempted to do this when they weren't getting their way. I think it's important to put things in historical perspective. They tried this in the 1930s with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There was a conservative Supreme Court majority at that time that had continued to strike down many of the New Deal programs and other things that Roosevelt was trying to put into place. And once again, when Democrats don't get their way, they try to go around the rules, and they attempted to pack the court then. So it's not a new concept, and it's just something they're borrowing from the same playbook they've been using for the last, ever how many years. Of course, every system that involves a human being is flawed, but I believe we have the best system. This court packing thing, just when someone doesn't get their way, is ludicrous. That's how the rules are made. And, there's certainly avenues legislatively if Democrats want to change certain laws. But usually, as we've seen the past 50 years, Democrats court shop instead. They try to find a court that is sympathetic, and that's how they basically had this nation under their thumb since at least the LBJ administration in the 60s. And now when the courts under the Trump administration became much more conservative, they really don't know what to do. And so now they try to change the rules to favor what they want. When Democrats don't win at a ballot box, they don't win at the state legislature, they don't win at the federal legislature or the executive offices, there's a problem. And so again, if they want to change things, they should do it the legal way, the right way, the way that our founders intended for it to be done, not to play political games, try to subvert the system.
Yeah. And two things, I think it can't be overstated how important Trump was to bringing us to this point.
Well, Trump beat them at their own game. And we do have Harry Reid, a former Democratic majority leader, to thank for some of this when he allowed a simple majority to confirm judges to federal courts. But Trump realized that this was the game the Democrats had played for years, that they would go and pack the courts as much as they could, and then that was what they would go to. That's how they would get things done. If they couldn't get it done in Congress, they would go to the courts, federal courts, and get it done. And Trump beat them at their own game. And it was a great thing to see, and that's one of his greatest accomplishments is the changing, the reforming of the federal judiciary, and that'll have probably one of the longest impacts of anything that he was able to accomplish.
Sure,
one of the most positive as well.
Yeah. I'm certainly a big fan of that. And what is your view on how Democrats are just reacting to overturning Roe versus Wade and returning that power back to the states, letting people actually vote through a federalist system on the issue? They just are, resistant to that at every turn.
Well, I think, again, it goes back to what they have been used to. They're not used to having a federal court system that is, at least a Supreme Court, that appears to be ruling against them in so many ways recently. And I think a lot of them, they just don't know how to react. I mean, they've had control of the federal government for, longer than you and I have been alive, probably twice our age at least. I mean, they have been in control of the federal government and the federal court system. I think that their reactions shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, you look back at the 2016 presidential election, how they responded to that. Look at the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings in the Senate. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. And I think Republicans would do well to remember that Democrats never change their tactics. They're always the same. They're very predictable. And just watch for patterns. And, this is not something that we agree with, but it's something definitely shouldn't take us by surprise.
Yeah. Their tactics don't change.
They don't.
And the interesting thing too is, if Republicans on the right side of the aisle would be using those same tactics, we would be told we would be demonized, ostracized, everything along those lines. But we got the mainstream media and everything just covering for the Democrats there. They're showing up at justices' houses, threatening to burn everything in their house and everything else. And
it's reminiscent here in North Carolina. The Democratic Party had an organization that was called the Red Shirts. That was a part of the militant arm of the Ku Klux Klan. The Democrats used in this state for decades to do their bidding. And if they terrorized Republicans, whether African American or white Republicans, to intimidate people into supporting Democratic policy. And that's something that took place in this state for decades, and back in the 20s and 30s and things like that, and during that time. And again, we're seeing this today. I mean, they go in and destroy cities, and they don't get their way. And this is not what America is about. It's not the America we want our children growing up in.
No, certainly agree. So that pretty much does it for our interview. So I certainly appreciate you coming in and talking with us about the issues locally and both nationally. So hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
Thank you very much.
Upcoming Davidson GOP events. So the next Davidson GOP meeting will be held on June 2nd at 7 p.m. at Yarborough's in Lexington, featuring Hal Weatherman, president of the Electoral Education Foundation. The Davidson County Republican Men's Club meeting will be held June 4th at Biscuit King off Talbert Boulevard at 9 a.m. The next Davidson County Republican Women's Club meeting will be held June 21st at 6 p.m. here at Yarborough's also. And the Republic Light Latinos and Government Honorary Team will hold their regular meeting on May 31st at 7 p.m. at the Thomasville Parks and Rec Building. If you want to find out more about Republic Light, you can visit their website at republiclight.org. So I want to thank you guys for checking out our inaugural episode of the Davidson GOP's Red Wave podcast. If you have any comments, concerns, or just want to get in touch with us about an issue, upcoming event, or something else, you can reach us through our website at davidson.nc.gop, our Facebook page at Davidson GOP, or you can email us directly at davidsonncgop@gmail.com. So thanks for listening, and let's all do our part to make sure a red wave is coming. See you guys next time.